Being the Ricardos is an Aaron Sorkin movie which just came out, which I never ever heard of, but I wish I did much sooner. Let's talk about why. Being the Ricardos is a biographical picture about Lucille Ball, which follows Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz as they face a crisis that could end their careers and another that could end their marriage. The main part of the movie takes place across a week during the recording of the show I Love Lucy. There's other elements of Lucille Ball's career sprinkled in there throughout that week as well, and flashbacks and things. We'll get into that, why that's one of the worst parts of the movie. But this is a movie I'd never heard of before, until I was scrolling through Amazon Prime just yesterday and I saw the poster. And on the poster, it says, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. That's always going to grab my attention, especially since Trial of Chicago 7. This is only Aaron Sorkin's third directorial movie, after Molly's Game and Trial of Chicago 7, which went on to be nominated for an Academy Award just last year. And on top of that, of course, Aaron Sorkin is one of the best writers of all time. You got Social Network, he was involved in the likes of West Wing, one of the best TV shows ever, and he's a phenomenal storyteller. And that's evident here in this movie, because this movie is a very well told movie. It's got its problems, but overall, this is a movie that I was blown away by. You've got a phenomenal cast, including Nicole Kidman, Javier Bardem, J.K. Simmons, and many more. I would not be surprised to see Nicole Kidman nominated for some awards for her role, same with Javier Bardem, and possibly even J.K. Simmons, because J.K. Simmons is the one who had me laughing a hell of a lot in this movie. He was fantastic. Now, personally, I don't know too much about Lucille Ball. I know of her, but I haven't seen too much of her work. I haven't even seen I Love Lucy, because other than sketches and shows taking the piss out of that show, I haven't really seen it because, you know, I didn't grow up in the 50s. But that didn't take away from my enjoyment of Being the Ricardos. On top of that, the end of the movie is one of the best juxtapositions I've ever seen used in a movie. You're going from a moment of pure elation to a moment of crushing sadness in about 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and it's so well done. Because the moment of elation, it's one of those ones you well up a little bit because it's so well done with the music rising and everything, the crowd cheering. I don't want to give too much away, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but then you get a crushing moment right near the end, and it's just so well done, so well acted overall. Now, it's no surprise with Aaron Sorkin writing and directing this one that the story is very well told. It's got some very interesting points, and this is a movie, as I mentioned earlier, I knew nothing about, so I had no expectations going in, but at the same time, I kind of knew about Lucille Ball, but she was never a major interest point for me. However, I found myself all the way through this movie being engaged, constantly staring at the screen, never picking up my phone, never going to make a coffee or pausing it or going to do something else. The movie just caught my attention, and it was a very enjoyable watch. Similar to Molly's Game and Trial of Chicago 7, Being the Ricardos is slightly over 2 hours. It's about 2 hours and 12 minutes, I believe. 2 hours and 10 minutes, something along those lines, which at first you could think is a long movie, but the pacing of the movie is so good that the time flies by. In particular, the second hour of the movie just whizzed by. And by the time it was over, I was left sitting on the couch going, wow. Definitely one of the better movies I watched in 2021. However, it's got its problems, because in the movie, we keep getting these flashbacks or different timeline parts. As I mentioned, the core of the story takes place across 1 week during the recording of I Love Lucy, particularly one episode, and we see the different elements, the different days, you know, camera blocking one day, recording on another day, etc, etc. However, in between, we do get these moments from Lucille Ball's career, like when she gets her first big movie with Henry Fonda. However, it's never really clear that this is different from the other week, that these are flashbacks. They could have just put up a little card saying 2 years ago, or, you know, 1952, or whatever year it was, just to differentiate it and let you know this is a flashback. Now, you don't want to treat your audience like idiots, of course, and, you know, Aaron Sorkin will always be a better filmmaker than I will be. But for me as an audience member, there was times where it was just a little bit confusing as to why characters were doing things that were completely separate from what they'd been doing just a minute ago. The timeline kind of jumped around, it was a little bit muddled up. It could have done with a little bit more clarification from the filmmaking point of view. And I think if you watch the movie, you'll know exactly what I mean. But I think that's my only gripe with the movie. It was a very enjoyable movie, some fantastic performances, a very well told story, and for me, one of the surprises of 2021, because as I mentioned, it's not a movie I'd even heard of. I don't know why it slipped through the cracks, especially with such a good cast and Aaron Sorkin directing. I don't know, it just slipped through the cracks, but I'm glad it did, because when I finally found it, it was sensational. And I'd highly recommend checking out Being the Ricardos. It's on Amazon Prime in Ireland and the UK. It might be on something else in America. That tends to happen a lot lately. I don't know why. But when it comes down to a rating out of 10 for Being the Ricardos, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. A solid, solid movie. Not one of the best of the year, don't get your hopes that high, but a very enjoyable movie and one I'd highly recommend checking out soon.